Day Indonesia. How are you? I'm Hanif, your host today from Pesan Iklim dari Azerbaijan. Currently, we have a special guest from PT Vale Indonesia, Mr. Bernardus Irmanto. How are you?
Good. Has been a great experience so far.
Okay.
Arriving 2 days ago.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
It's cold.
It's cold.
But so far I try to enjoy.
Okay, but quite enjoy, right?
Yeah.
Have you explored the Baku cities already? Or?
Not yet. We arrived only yesterday, right? So we arrived early in the morning, and then
Directly
to Baku from Beijing, because on Sunday we signed a very important agreement that was witnessed by President Prabowo. It's part of our commitment as well to grow. And then directly flew from Beijing to Baku.
Here.
It's not to Baku actually. We flew to Dubai and from
And then
Dubai to Baku.
Yeah.
And then go directly to the COP.
Okay, so everything runs smoothly, right, sir?
So far.
Okay,
Yeah.
so far, okay. Thank you, sir. So I'm going to ask you a few questions about how does PT Vale Indonesia contribute to advancing Indonesia's role in the global energy transition, sir?
It's a good question actually. I think the global decarbonization issue
Yes.
poses significant challenges to all countries.
Okay.
But at the same time, it's actually introduced significant opportunities as well for a country like Indonesia that has significant amount of natural resources, primarily the critical mineral, right?
Okay.
Like nickel. Indonesia is the host of the largest nickel deposit in the world, and we know that nickel is actually used in every element of decarbonization. You name it, right? Like the hydropower, the solar power, the nuclear, the EV, energy storage, all of those elements actually use nickel.
Yes.
So it is an important opportunity for Indonesia to grow, right? And as we know that the President Prabowo recently, after being inaugurated as president, and even before, mentioned about the Indonesian economic growth target of 8%. At the same time, how to achieve that growth with a strong commitment as well to respect the environment. So I think it's a good case for Indonesia. Having a significant amount of resources of nickel, nickel is being used and being sought for the energy transition. I think the question is how to grow the nickel development in Indonesia, but as I mentioned before, still respecting the environment. So PT Vale has been positioning itself quite uniquely in the nickel production. We have been operating in Indonesia for more than 50 years now.
Okay.
And we have been known for our sustainability practices. If we look at nickel production, for example, several factors that we need to understand, right? The impact to the environment, from the deforestation, the water quality, carbon emission, all of those we try to address it. So PT Vale has been, again, I think, consistently practicing good mining practices, preserving the environment with our good mining practices, and that's positioning us quite uniquely. We are partnering with like-minded company around the world, the U.S. company, the European company, and Chinese company, Japanese company. So in a sense, PT Vale is like the United Nation of nickel, because we are actually attracting different countries to collaborate with us, different companies to collaborate with us in order to drive more production, more sustainable and green production of nickel. And that's how we contribute to the energy transition.
Okay. Oh, but really, PT Vale is really contributing to nickel also, sir. Okay, so how does PT Vale address the environmental impact of mining to contribute a low carbon battery supply chain?
As I mentioned, I think we have to acknowledge that doing mining will introduce impact to the environment, right? And Indonesia, the typical ore that we have is we call it lateric ore, and in order to exploit that ore, we have to cut the trees, for example. So I think the major issue that has been actually being criticized, being scrutinized by international NGO, international agency, is about deforestation.
Yes.
So that's the first, I think it's one of the biggest impact, right? Second is about biodiversity. When you cut the trees, you open the forest, like it or not, you actually disturb the biodiversity.
Yes.
Thirdly, it's about the water quality, right? So, and because once you open the area, and then there's running water from the mining area, if you're not treating the running water properly, then water can flow to the natural water body and it's polluting the water body. Fourth is decarbonization, as I mentioned. If you are processing nickel ore, you need energy. And then if you are actually using coal or fuel, then you're emitting CO2, right? So that's,
yes.
And you're actually introducing new problem. The question that we have to answer, like, exploiting nickel is to solve the carbon issue,
yes.
is to solve the climate issue. So it is going to be very contradicting if you're actually exploiting nickel to solve the climate issue, but you're introducing
yes.
new issue, right? So it's actually doesn't serve the purpose. So PT Valley has been practicing, as I mentioned, practicing good mining practices. For deforestation, for example, we do the mining, like compartment by compartment. Some other company might use different approach to do mining, but in PT Valley case, we are dividing the mining area to small compartment. We mine, by compartment. When we actually done the mining on that compartment, we reclaim, we rehabilitate that one,
okay.
and move to another compartment. We're doing what we call as progressive reclamation, meaning that we are not waiting until the whole hill is finished and then do reclamation. As I mentioned, we're doing small compartment mining. Once done, then we're reclaiming that. That's number one. But our commitment is actually goes beyond that, right? So we are also doing rehabilitation outside of the concession area. So you can imagine from early 70s until today, we opened around 5,000 to 6,000 hectares, okay. Right? So for 50 years. And we have rehabilitated now around 2.5 times what we opened.
Okay.
So we actually rehabilitate more than we open, right? So that's our commitment as well. If we're talking about deforestation, some people talking about net zero, right? So you're actually reclaiming what you're opening. But in PT Valley case, we are actually rehabilitating more than we are opening. I think that's number one. Number two, for biodiversity, we have been practicing as well. Before we open new area, we are doing inventory, like okay. Twist inventory and biodiversity inventory, right? And then that's actually take significant amount of time before yes. we actually open the mining. And one of the things that we are doing is actually try to replicate, right? So to do the seedling of the particular trees that identify in certain area. And expecting that if we actually finish the mining, we can plant it back to the same area. Yeah. So more or less, the area, we expect that the area will be similar, right? To pre-mining time, right? So that's what we are doing. And for the third one is about water pollution. I think it's a very serious issue.
Yes.
Several years ago, there was a term Laut Merah in Sulawesi, right?
Yeah.
Because some miners, they did mining close to the water body without having proper treatment facility, and the water coming from the mining actually flew to the ocean, right?
Yes.
In our case, I think one of the example that I can share, our mining area is adjacent to ancient lake called Lake Matano.
Lake Matano.
And Lake Matano is one of the deepest lake in the world. It's 595 meters depth. It's very, very deep, and it's basically the sources of water for the community as well as for the company. It's sources of water to generate power for the company as well. So in PT Valley, we call Lake Matano as Ibu.
Okay.
Because actually the sources of life for
The
all
mother
of
of
us
life,
all.
yeah.
So we have to preserve that. So if we are doing the mining responsible, then you can imagine what kind of impact we are introducing to our Ibu, to our Lake Matano,
yeah.
right? So after 50 years of operation,
50 years.
50 years of operation,
Yeah.
I think the quality of Lake Matano water is still preserved. It's actually, in a sense, better than bottled water quality in terms of total dissolved solid. So that's a proof that we're actually doing the right thing in preserving the Lake Matano. What we're doing is actually we try to map all of the possible water flows
Okay.
from the mining, right? And then after we actually identify those all, we build what we call a settling pond, right? So all of the water will be contained in a settling pond,
yeah.
and then settle the sediment, and then only after the water actually meeting certain standard, we actually let it go, right? So let it flow again. And then there's a technology called gravity setters as well.
Okay.
So we install gravity setters close to the end, water body, and like that works, right? So the Lake Matano water quality is a testament, right, to our practices.
Yes.
So let's talk about the water pollution, and about decarbonization. We built and operated three hydro plant, right?
Yes.
Generating 365 megawatt power.
Wow.
So all of the 4 furnaces that we have in Sorowako powered by hydro plant electricity.
Wow.
So that makes our operation in Sorowako the lowest carbon intensity AKF plant in Indonesia. But it's not enough. I think we have to do more in order to decarbonize our operation. But in terms of new plan, new project that we are going to build, and then at this point of time, we are in the middle of executing our project, building 3 H power plant.
Wow.
So the 3 H power plant is actually having much lower carbon intensity.
Okay.
So right now our carbon intensity in Sorowako operation, in our operation, is around 28 ton CO2 equivalent per ton nickel.
Wow.
So the new plant, the 2 new plant, which is Pomala HPAL and Sorowako HPAL, is going to be less than 7. Less than
Wow,
7 tons. So you can see the big drop from 28 to 7, right? But what is amazing is actually the newest plan, right? The newest investment plan, which is Baudopi HPAL. This is one that I shared to you. The agreement was signed in Beijing, witnessed by President Prabowo. The intention for that new plan is to have the net zero operation from day one. It's going to be designed to achieve that. So not even, 7 and then we need to decarbonize more, but from day one, we are aiming to have net zero operation. How can we achieve that? I think the contribution from technology advancement is important, right? So I myself didn't imagine that we can actually have nickel processing facility with net zero design, probably several years ago, right? But it is possible now. Right? So by technological advancement, innovation, we try to recover all of the energy that we use in the processing plant, probably combined with some PV, is possible, right? So that's actually going to set this project apart from the other project, from the other HPAL. So like it's so inspiring in a sense that it's actually doable. But again, it's doable because of the technological advancement, because of the collaboration, and because of the innovation.
Okay. It's really interesting and really inspiring how PT Valley Indonesia contributing to low carbon emission, right? So I'm really happy to hear that how PT Valley really contributing to improve, and then from like what you said, from 28 to 7, it's really a big drop in a sense here. So the next question is, what are the primary challenges PT Vale Indonesia facing in creating sustainable battery supply chains, and how are you addressing them?
In your previous question, I explained how we actually address that,
Yes.
right? So
Yes,
we
yes,
actually show and prove to the world that
That-
responsible mining is actually possible, right? Secondly, that a lot of misconception here that, well, if you are going to do the responsible mining, sustainable mining, you're not going to make money, right? So
Okay.
who says that? I mean, PT Vale has been a living example. We have been practicing sustainable mining and processing for 50 years, and we're still surviving.
Yes.
The way I look at it is that mining is a long-term business. Unless you do things correctly, you're not going to be in the business for a long time.
For a long time, yeah.
It's about reputation. It's about credential. It's about trust from your shareholders. So I think right now, again, being in a industry that has been perceived quite negatively by the public, I think one of the challenges to prove, right?
Yeah.
To have to prove to the world that it's possible, to build the trust, not only with the employee, not only with the government, but also with the NGO,
Yeah.
that it is possible.
It's possible.
Right? And secondly, is really to find like-minded partner.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, it needs collaboration, right?
Collabor-
So we need to develop the nickel resources that we have with like-minded partner. We need to bring into the table, okay, PT Vale can bring a green sustainable ore to the table, and we need to find the technology partner that has,
Different
similar concept about sustainable development. We need to find other partners that's also having the same intention
Same
as well.
intention, yeah.
And it's not easy as well, right? It's not easy, but I think it is possible.
Yes.
I believe it is possible, right? So yes, it's a challenge, right? To convince the world, to convince the stakeholders that it's possible. It's not easy, but it's possible. Probably right now people are talking about, well, what about the market? Market now is centered around the China, right? Majority of the nickel investment in Indonesia, the product is being shipped to China. But what about the other part of the world? When we talk about decarbonization, it's actually global challenges, right?
Yes.
And right now, in order to penetrate other market like US, Europe, again, it's about perception, about how
Having-
Indonesian nickel is developed, right?
Yes.
So it's not easy as well. So PT Vale Indonesia has been consistent enough to pursue that practices. We are now pursuing as well some credential, right? So PT Vale Indonesia recently in October we received ESG rating. Probably it's one of the lowest ESG rating for Indonesian company,
Yeah.
rated by Sustainalytics. So it's actually proving that we're doing the right thing, but also to convince the international community that PT Vale is different.
Okay.
Not different being different, but it's actually we are responsible enough, and we want to be global players in addressing the carbon challenges. And we are in the process now to get the IRMA certification. So there will be several steps, but we want really to have that certification to prove that we can do
Okay.
it. And if we can have the IRMA certification, we have the lowest ESG rating, compared to other Indonesian mining company. I think we can show to the world, we can convince the stakeholders, the shareholders as well, the market, that we can actually supply you with the critical mineral.
So in order, like I heard from you, in order to have being responsible for creating the company that really have a zero net, it's also needs to have a partner that have the same vision, right?
Correct.
So in order to achieve that, very maybe some people questioning that purpose or that achievement, but if we are doing this together, so it could be achievable.
It's achievable. Yeah, I mean through collaboration, I believe it is achievable.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm going to next. How can international corporations support Indonesia's goal and PT Vale's initiative in building a sustainable supply chain?
Yeah, as I mentioned, I think it's the keyword here is collaboration.
Collaboration.
We cannot do that alone,
Yes.
right? For Indonesia particularly, as I mentioned at the beginning, that we are quite rich with natural resources,
Yeah.
nickel, copper,
Of course.
cobalt, tin, you name it, right? So this country is so rich
So
with
rich.
natural resources.
Yeah.
In certain degree, I think we still pretty much dependent to other country in processing the
raw material.
The raw material. I think that should be the next step
Yeah.
that the country should be aiming for, to have Indonesian technology,
Yes.
right, to process the material. Is it possible? I think it's possible. I think one of the partnership that we have, again, through collaboration, the latest project that we have in Badopro project, one of the element of the investment is actually building the research and development center, right? So our partners and PT Valley are quite aligned that we need to, mindful enough and intentionally build research centers to facilitate the knowledge transfer to the nation talents, to facilitate further innovation. And if there are new innovation coming from the research and development, it should be patented in Indonesia.
Yeah.
And I don't have any doubt that Indonesia can build that, can own Indonesia technology in processing the material. And it should be part of our roadmap in the futures. So, or mining, build the technology, build the high added values, industrial base, and that should be actually quite aligned with, again, Indonesian objective to reach the 8% economic growth, right?
Yes.
So I think, I do believe that this country has a bright
Potential.
future, but we have to do our homework.
Yes, that's right. That's correct. Because I have faith that Indonesia in the future could be. We're a rich country that have a very raw material that we can process, right?
Correct.
So, but in the future, I believe that Indonesia can do it alone. So we not depend to the other countries. Okay, so the last questions. Could you outline PT Valley's roadmap for reducing emission in line with Indonesia NDC's target and COP29 goals? I think you already answered it, but
but I think one thing that I needed to emphasize as well, PT Valley has made a very blunt pledge several years ago that we want to achieve 1/3 emission reduction, CO2 emission reduction by 2030, and achieve the net zero by 2050. So that's our target and our commitment. Right now we have a roadmap to achieve that, although we haven't solved all of the equation, right? In order to achieve net zero, I do believe it's very challenging.
Yes.
It's really depending on the availability of the technology, and also the commitment of all parties to support us in achieving that goals. But at least for achieving the 2030 target, we have several roadmaps. We have executed several initiatives, and in the process of executing several others. One is actually try to, if you look at the nickel operation, right? So it's mining and processing. So mining, how to actually reduce the moisture coming from the mining, because moisture is linked to the energy use, right? So if the ore you bring from the mining operation is actually wet, then you need to burn more fuel to dry the ore, right? So how to reduce the moisture level, how to actually have optimum blending of the ore, so that from the same amount of ore you can produce more. That will address the energy usage as well. I think from the processing plant side, how to actually reduce the energy consumption per ton nickel produced, how to recover the waste, the heat waste from the operation, how to electrify as well some of the equipment, because again, as I mentioned, we have 3 hydro plants, we have excess energy.
Yes.
Like if we can use the excess energy to electrify some of the operation, that will reduce the fossil fuel consumption. And also like the ratio, like after executing all of those initiatives, and we still have some need for fossil fuel, And the question is like, what are we going to do with that? I
Yes.
mean, are we going to replace that with LNG, for example? Are we going to replace that with hydrogen in the future? So that's part of the things that we still need to work on. But I think the commitment-wise, we're very committed to achieve that target.
Okay, okay, thank you, Mr. Bernardus.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really having fun though, talking about nickel processing and mining, and how PT Vale Indonesia contributing to and commitment to bring net zero, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so hi Indonesia. Finally, we come to the end of the program Pesan Iklim dari Azerbaijan. Thank you for watching and see you on the next episode. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you very much.